What's up, everybody? My name is Dean Chessman, and today I'm going to show you how I made this perfect particle noise loop system using TouchDesigner. Let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do here is kind of set up my initial timing, and like I want to set a variable that's going to be what I can use to change how long I want my infinite loop to be. So I think this should really be my only variable I'm really going to set. So I'm going to do length, or let's do seconds. Actually, that's a little more clear. I'm going to do, say, 5 seconds for now, and I'm going to put this in a null just for just good practice. Call it variables. Right click and hit view. Now, really, this is not technically the best practice. The best thing I should do is probably do custom parameters and put it in there, but that's a little more advanced and I don't want to make this too complicated. Okay, so I've got my variable set. I'm now going to create an LFO, and I'm going to set the frequency to 1 divided by this. So I want this LFO to go once every 5 seconds. So it's going to be 0.2, and I'm going to do this as a ramp. So just so we can visualize what this timeline is looking like, I'm going to put this into a trail, right? So my ramp will go up for a second, or for 5 seconds. I'm going to expand this window a bit longer so you'll actually see it. Go back from 0 to 1, start back over again. Okay, so what are we going to use that for? So let's set this up a little more, then I'll explain exactly how, like, the theory of this noise loop works. So what I want this to do is essentially give me the X and Y values of going in a circle. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to bring in a pattern chop, and already the pattern chop is in a sine wave. So that's going to give me one variable. Let's go ahead and call that X. We'll make another one called Y. It doesn't actually have to be X and Y to make a perfect circle or whatever, but like the concept's there. And then I want these to go in a circle. So like one should be controlled by a sine wave, the other one by a cosine wave, and really the only difference with that, if you remember from your math, is that it's offset by 0.25. So I'm gonna, in my offset, oh sorry, not that offset, phase step per channel is what I want to offset this. I'm going to offset the phase step per channel by 0.25. So this one starts at 0, goes up to 1, down through 0 to -1, back up to 0. This one starts at -1, goes up to 1, back to -1. So then the next thing I'm going to do is I want to animate through these using this LFO. So I'm going to do that with a lookup. Excuse me. And so this is just going to be moving through these waveforms and sampling what those values are. Okay, so these are going to be my coordinates. Okay, and the way that we're gonna use these is inside of a noise top. I can transform through this noise, kind of this noise sampling, using these variables. So the way I like to think of noise, and I've talked about this in other tutorials, is like, if you imagine noise, especially if I bring my exponents way up, you can kind of visualize this as like a cube of Swiss cheese where there's these kind of like denser areas and these voided areas. It's not a perfect analogy because it's fuzzy in between. So like, when this exponent isn't there, there's these sort of fuzzy values. But you can imagine that 3D space of these, and if I transform myself in the Z space through it, I'm taking slices through this sort of Swiss cheese, right? And so in order to get a loop in these values, like this noise, I want to have the noise kind of move through this noise sampling space and then return back to where I started. So that's where I get this concept of using a circle to kind of move through this virtual noise space and sample those points in slices and then end up back to where I started. Okay, so the way I'm going to do that, and you can experiment with different ways to do it, but with mine, I'm going to change my noise type to simplex 4D, and then I'm going to actually animate through my Z translate and my translate 4D. So this fourth dimension. So I'm going to bring my first x value into translating in the z space, and I'm going to change my y coordinate to go through my translate 4D. And it's really hard to tell right now, but this is actually looping. So how can I get it to be a little less extreme? Let's change some of our values here. So instead of this going from 0 to 1, let's change our amplitude so that it maybe doesn't move quite as far through the space before it comes back. So bringing my amplitude down, kind of seeing something that looks like something I can follow a little more. And then I'm also going to go in and maybe adjust my period, you know, to change sort of the view of this. And I can also change my amplitude here. Harmonics, the seed, you know, maybe I'll just look around to see if there's certain values that I like more than others. But long story short is we have a loop happening here because we're going using an x and a y coordinate that's going in a perfect circle. So like the speed that we're going at in sort of x, y 2D space is always going to be that same speed. And it's moving through these samples. So how can we prove that? We'll make a little tool here that will make it so we can continually test to make sure we're getting our loop correctly. I'm going to make a movie file out. I'm also going to bring in a timer chop. And this is the other place I'm going to use my variable. So I'm going to drag my time into the length. And then I'm going to activate this and grab my running and put that to record. So this should make a recording for exactly 5 seconds, which should be my loop length. So let's test this. We're going to initialize and hit start. I did forget one thing. Let's turn off real time. I mean, this might have still worked. Let's do a test and let's see if that makes a difference actually. So let's go to move file in. Let's go to my file. Give me a second to find this. I'll have to blur this out later. Okay, so I've gone into my project folder and I've grabbed my TD movie out file and I brought it in. So let's see, does it look like we're looping? I'm not seeing the seam come up, and you know, we're seeing sort of that same shape that I'm noticing right here show up. So yeah, so we're getting a perfect loop, so that's good. Just for the future though, I am going to turn this real-time flag off just in case it skips frames and things like that. I don't want to have to worry about this getting the count off. Maybe it won't, because maybe that's an absolute 5 seconds, but I don't want to risk it. Or maybe the 5 seconds there is going to be the same as our LFO 5 seconds, but no matter. We'll use that same thing, and I'm going to keep these sort of around because I'm going to keep testing to make sure my loop is staying a perfect loop there. Okay, so what's next? I'm thinking I want to make kind of a cool like particle system that's really kind of active, lots of things going on, and being controlled by this noise in a way that it'll still work with my perfect loop. So I'm going to do just sort of like a basic random noise. So and this one's going to be, like I said, random, and I only need this to be red and green because these are going to be UV coordinates or XY coordinates. So I'm going to go into my pixel format and I'm going to change this to 32-bit float RG. And then I need to go back to my first tab of my noise and turn off monochrome. So now I've got all these red, green values just that are representing XY coordinates. So I'm going to use those as my XY positions, but then I want to have like sort of a height, like do like maybe a sort of ripply effect. So the ripple effect, I'm going to use a ramp. And we're going to make this circular and bring our period down. And this is another place we're going to actually use our sort of looping values here. So this one we're actually going to use the LFO. And because this is going to 0 to 1, I can bring this into my phase. And this is going to perfectly match up every 5 seconds. My phase is going to go from 0 to 1. And that's the exact amount, going through one phase of my ramp is going from kind of from the beginning to the end, the exact same point. So this should also give me a good loop on the same timeline. Let's use the ramp, and then let's disconnect this first, just so it's out of the way, disconnect that. And then I'm going to use this noise's slope to distort or displace that ramp. So let's add a slope. And I want to measure the slope for the horizontal luminance in red, but I'm going to just use red and green. So I'm going to change the green to vertical luminance and then make sure the values of this are also 32-bit float RG. And let's make sure this, okay, so if I middle click on this noise, I notice this is still 8-bit RGBA, but I can, I don't need all 4 channels, right? Like if I hit A and then N, this is storing 3 different channels worth of values. I don't need all that, but I do want more precision in one channel. So I'm going to change to 32-bit float mono. That's going to give me just one channel. And then my slope is going to be a lot smoother looking from there. Okay, let's see what else we need to change on our slope. So I want my 0 point of my slope to be from 0, just because that will help me better with the displace later. And then the strength, I will probably be coming back to adjust later. So, okay, I've got my slope. Let's bring this into a null, actually, just in case we want to, well, actually, that doesn't matter. Sorry. Let's go ahead and bring this into a displace, actually. So I have my ramp. Let's put that into a displace and then displace it by our slope values. And then let's tweak our settings here. So I'm going to use just the red and green. Again, this is only red and green values. I'm going to hit A and N here as well so we can see those 2 channels normalized. So yes, we're going to take from that red and green. I'm going to change the source midpoint to 0. And then the displace weight is something I can play with here to adjust. Okay, so maybe this noise is still moving a little faster than I really want it to go. So let's tweak a little more of this amplitude, maybe down to like 0.1, maybe even 0.03 or something. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, I'm gonna stick with that. Let's go with that, and we'll probably come back and tweak some more in a little bit as well. Okay, so what else now? So now I want, let's say, if I imagine this as sort of the overhead view of what I really want, and I want the white and black values to sort of be my height values. How can I use that? So we already have our noise point system here. And I'm going to use these because I said these were like XY coordinates. I'm going to use these to sample the location here. And then whatever that sampled value is, I'm going to use as my height data. And I'm going to do that by encoding it into a blue channel. And then at that point, I'll then have my X, Y, and Z positions for my particles. So how am I going to sample those? This is going to be a great use for the remap top. So I'm going to be sampling from the first input, using the positions of this second input. And then let's see, I want the resolution source to be the UV image, which is that second input. And that, let's see, I want this to also be 32-bit float mono because I'm just sampling this value. And great. So now I've got my X and Y values here and my Z values here. We're going to combine those now with a reorder. So I'm going to take my red and green values from input 1. I'm going to take my blue values from input 2. And then the reason that didn't update is because this is still taking from my UV, the 32-bit float RG pixel format. So I want to make sure I change this to 32-bit float RGBA. So now I've got that blue channel included in there. And just to do a little sanity check, I'm going to hit activate and then hit V to visualize this as particles. And I am seeing now, okay, like these are creating points in 3D space as expected. It's sampling correctly from here, but my height values are crazy high, right? So let's fix that. Let's add a math after this remap, and we can go to the multiply and bring it way down. 0.02 maybe. How much of an effect do we really want here? Okay, so let's go 0.04. Okay, I can be okay with that for now. Okay, we'll keep adjusting, but that's at least good progress so far. Okay, so let's go ahead and render this, and then we can go through tweaking the actual look of this. So this is our position, and let's make our render network. So I'm going to do this with small boxes. So I'm going to bring in a box. I'm going to make it 0.001 for the size. I'm going to bring that into Geo, drag out from the top and hit tab while I'm dragging out to make this automatically connect. And then let's add a Fong as our material. We'll bring in a camera. Let's bring in a light. Oops, not a list, a light. And a render. Let's do this in vertical so I can share it afterwards. So 1080, 1920. And then I think we are ready to start instancing. So let's go into our geo, go to instance, turn on instancing, and bring in our position data into the translate operator and put in R, G, and B for my position data. Okay, and then let's right click and view this. Bring it up to our corner here. And what else do we want to do? Let's go and zoom in with our camera a bit. See our ripples a little nicer. All right, we're definitely not moving as much as I wanted to, but let's get some shadows and stuff too. So let's get our light. Let's move our light in closer and at a high angle. I don't know if you see what I'm doing here, but I'm using the viewfinder here to kind of get above it and shoot straight down onto it. And then I'm going to add some soft shadows in the shadows tab. Let's see if we can see that a little better. All right, and I think I want to bring my size of these up a little more of the box. So yeah, let's go up to like, yeah, let's go at least a 2. Okay, and then my boxes are looking pretty flat here. So I'm gonna add a random rotation to my instances as well. So just off this last reorder, let's go ahead and add a noise. And this is gonna be not monochrome. It's gonna be just red and green value because I'm just gonna rotate on 2 axes. And then the amplitude of my noise, I wanna be 180 degrees. And that should be good. Let's put it into a null, call that rotation ROT, and bring it to our rotates with the red and green values to rotate. Okay, so now I got a little bit of like, you know, differentiation between how these are lit here. All right, I don't love how this is looking yet, so let's go in and tweak some more values. So let's see, I bet, yeah, let's change a lot more things to have a lot more fidelity here. So, you know, even at our displace, we're only getting, you know, 8-bit fixed pixel pixel value. So if I change that to 32-bit float mono, that's still not quite what I want. Let's go into our ramp. Let's change this to, let's ramp at, with ease in, ease out. It is a little smoother. This is also only 256 by 256. So let's bring this up to like 1280 by 1280. And let's see, what else can we do here? So these are both 32-bit floats. I know what I can do. So part of the reason these are like jumping up is because I have this hard edge here. Let's see if we can soften that a little bit by putting our ramp into the middle. I'm going to bring my value in the middle down. I'm going to bring my edge value back up to white. So now it's going up and down instead of just having that hard edge. That's definitely closer to what I'm looking for. Cool. Let's see, what else can we do? Let's do our loop test real quick to make sure we're still getting a perfect loop. So I'm going to bring this render now into this movie out. Go back to my timer, initialize it, hit start, and record for 5 seconds. And then coming to my movie file in, hit pulse to reload, and let's see if it looks like we're getting a good 5-second loop. So let's just add, you know, like we've got already a pretty nice like complex look here. Let's, you know, maybe tweak our camera view a little bit to get more of that angle on this. We can see the height we're getting. Then let's do a little post processing. So let's insert an out here. It's kind of my final view, and then view that instead of just my render. And then, you know, let's add some of our basic kind of post-processing bloom effect. Let's tweak Y. Let's see. All right. Sometimes just twiddling, you get more than going to like, the preset what you're used to. Okay, what else? I'm gonna also add, just because, instead of having just a complete black and white image, I'm gonna go ahead and add a RGB delay. Just a fairly heavy post-processing step, but and then I'm gonna move these values down a bit. So we're getting sort of slight RGB value in there. Oh, maybe that's still too much. Let's go back up to like double those. So yeah, I'm getting a little bit of like, chromatic aberration kind of coming off the edges of my values there. What else? Still want to tweak maybe this light a little bit so it's favoring towards that edge away from the camera. Make sure it's got the whole thing in there. Let's see. Let's also play with some of this like specular here. Let's turn our specular way up so we get those little sparkles coming out, and shininess be in there a little bit. Okay. Is that good? I don't know. Tell me what you think. Maybe this is kind of a boring one, but let's do our test again real quick. So we've got our outgoing into here. Let's start our timer. Initiate start. Run it for 5 seconds. I mean, it should be able to start and stop in any 5 seconds and get a perfect loop, right? So pulse to reload that, and let's take a look here. Let's bring out our info so we can see when it's played like a full cycle. Yeah, there we go. There was the snap at the beginning, but I didn't see any jump. No, it's great. Cool. So, I mean, you can use, using just this LFO, this lookup, this noise idea. I think there's a lot of different ways you can combine this sort of concept into a lot of really cool noise loop sort of effects. So you can get these perfect loops that are really complex because you're sampling through this really complex noise space. And I think there's a lot of really rad things. I would love to see what you make. So if you make anything that uses this concept and you'd like to share it, I would love to see it, and I will reshare anything people say, that I help them figure out. So definitely do that, and find me on Instagram or wherever to tag me in that. So I will leave it at that. So a couple things before I leave. I am a freelance TouchDesigner developer. So if you have a project that you're working on right now that you could use some help with, definitely hit me up. Also, be sure to like and subscribe to this if you want to see more videos like this in the future. I'm trying to do like a cadence of about at least one a month, but maybe I'll do more during kind of like slower times if I can. I'm also considering doing some like intro series and some things that are a little more simple concepted as well. Definitely let me know if you think that's something you'd be interested in. But I think I'll leave it at that, and I will see you at the next one.